Hi there, welcome. This is the Kelly's Astrology podcast, where you can find insight, guidance, and understanding through astrology. I'm Kelly, and I'll be your host. Hey there, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Kelly's Astrology podcast. Today's episode marks the 1-year anniversary of the podcast. I dropped my first episode back on July 1st, 2023. If you've been listening along since then, thank you so much for being part of this journey. If you've joined us more recently, I'm so happy that you found the show. Since the podcast is celebrating a birthday, I've been thinking a lot about the experience of the past 12 months. I'm thinking about what I'm loving about the podcast, and I'm also noticing what I'm curious about in terms of what I might do differently. In next week's episode, I'm going to share a little more on this. What you will notice in terms of today's show is that I'm going to give you the astro highlights for the next 2 weeks. So I'm going to share a little bit about an astro highlight to keep in mind for the week starting July 6th. And I'm also going to share about an astro highlight that you definitely need to know for the week starting July 13. That way you'll still get all the info that you're used to getting out of the show, but it will create a little space for a different kind of show next week. I'm going to be experimenting with a few options for the format and the content of the show, both this month in July and next month in August, just to see what else some of you might be interested in. I'm definitely going to keep up with these like weekly astro highlights, so that will definitely still be a part of it. So speaking of that, what is the astro info that you need to know for the next 2 weeks? So in today's episode, I'm going to share about 2 aspects and 1 planet changing signs. I'm going to talk about Mercury and Jupiter, which is a really auspicious aspect. I'm going to talk about Venus moving into Leo. And I'm also going to talk about probably the most unsettling or frustrating or potentially challenging aspect for the whole month of July, and that is Mars conjunct Uranus. If you love weekly astrology insights, I share loads of exclusive tips for timing your life with astrology inside my membership, which is different from the podcast, but has that similar weekly format. Just for this week, you can save 15% off the annual fee of the membership. Use the code ENERGY15 to save. Inside the membership, I provide astrology wisdom and guidance that I don't share anywhere else. These insights will help you protect your energy, become more effective, and point you towards ideal days for success, happiness, and growth. Joining the membership is ideal if you love astrology and want to keep learning. It's also perfect if you just want advance notice about the best dates each month so you can align your efforts with the energy of the cosmos. You'll also get info about the dates when the astro influences can be problematic, so you can plan accordingly. If you're enjoying the podcast, you will absolutely love the membership. Membership access also means you get a monthly worksheet, you get PDF downloadables like a month at a glance calendar, as well as the moon power dates. Members also receive 10% off just about everything on my website in terms of astrology classes and things like that. If you can't get enough astrology, I invite you to jump inside the Astrology Guide membership over at kellysastrology.com. I'm going to share the direct link and that code ENERGY15 to save 15% in the show notes below as well. So back to this week in July. The first aspect to share with you is a golden aspect. It's one of 2 golden aspects that are happening in July. And this aspect we're talking about is from Mercury in Leo to Jupiter in Gemini. This aspect supports everything to do with communication, with technology, things to do with business deals, money matters, and even plans around travel and adventure. Mercury sextile Jupiter is all about opportunities. It's about luck, about growth, about wisdom, and about learning. I also think it's an aspect that's about timing, right timing, being in the right place at the right time. Mercury will sextile Jupiter on July 8th or July 9th if you're in Australia. So the start of this second week of July kicks off with an absolutely uplifting aspect that can help you clarify what you want and put a plan together to help you get it. It's an aspect about support and encouragement and about generosity. It is very hopeful as well, which I think is a lovely little astro piece to have come in. Mercury aspects with Jupiter can bring happy news or welcome news. It's like, oh, this is a great thing that I've just heard about. It could be an offer that you're excited about. It could be a piece of information or wisdom that a friend passes on to you, like this thing helped me. Read this book, see this practitioner, do this thing. It's that idea of sharing the good, passing on the golden wisdom or the really helpful tips. It may be that Mercury Jupiter brings just good news that makes you feel good. It could be good news that's about you and your experiences, or it could be good news about somebody in your inner circle. This Mercury sextile Jupiter aspect has a lot of abundance and generosity in it as well. You might find a great deal or a great price on something if you're in the market for purchasing, any kind of item. You might help someone out by supporting their dreams. You might be encouraging them. You might be like, oh, I know someone who can help with that thing you're trying to do. Let me get you together. The idea of Mercury, the connector and the networker, is really expanded and put this kind of golden sparkling hue by the link from Mercury to Jupiter. It may be that you're able to connect with a benefactor or a well-connected person who is going to support your undertakings or is able to support and provide like encouragement for somebody that you know. So there is this real sense of, a collaborative energy. Mercury sextile Jupiter is fantastic for agreements, alliances, coming together with similar goals and visions in mind. So connecting with like-minded people to grow the things that you want to grow, to learn the things that you want to learn, or just to make the kinds of improvements that you're really passionate about. So there's a lot of curiosity and a lot of adventure in the air as Mercury and Jupiter work together. This is a great aspect for exploring new technology, for visiting new locations, for planning travel, or enjoying a really inspiring and uplifting discussion. Mercury and Jupiter in this kind of combination is great for anything to do with learning, teaching, wisdom, writing, that idea of benefiting from the wisdom of others or sharing the wisdom that you have. If you have to pitch something, sell or promote something, if you have to organize a group of people around a particular event or plan, or if you even have to sort out important paperwork, this aspect from Mercury to Jupiter is going to be so helpful. So I think the message here is if you need help, ask for it. If you have an abundance of something, offer it to others. There's this real spirit of generosity and abundance that's just so active that everybody can benefit from. So that's July 8th. We're going to come forward a few days now. We're looking at July 11th or July 12th if you're in Australia. Venus will move into Leo. So Venus is going to be in Leo for almost a month from July 11th through to August 5th. Venus in Leo is outgoing, sociable. She sets high standards. She's incredibly warm, loyal, and loving. Venus in Leo can also be a little bit stubborn. She can be stubborn about her affections. She can be stubborn about her standards. She's also really committed to enjoyment and of really good quality experiences and good quality connections. So Venus in Leo is a time where we want to add that more respectful, kind of kind, loving quality into our relationships. We're going to make sure we sort of ask that we're treated with the respect we know we deserve, and we're going to offer that to others as well. Venus in Leo is definitely ready to celebrate. She loves to bring people together for uplifting or joyful moments. And she's really keen to focus on quality time with special people. So Venus in Leo is like, let's do something together that's a little bit special, that really makes us both sparkle, and then we have that shared memory. There is a lot of affection and romance in the air with Venus in Leo, and you might, offer this grand gesture to a loved one, or you might treat a friend or a family member to a luxury experience. Venus in Leo is really happy to prioritize pleasure and delight. There's this real sort of feminine strength energy to Venus in Leo. And so taking the time to enjoy the good in life, to have fun in a really manageable way is what Venus in Leo is all about. What we're seeing here is we have a benefic planet, Venus, in the sign of the sun. And that's where we get some of those themes of this heartwarming energy, this affirming energy, and just general focus on like enjoyment and pleasure, things being pleasant. Venus in Leo is also an encouraging placement for creativity, for self expression, for flair and drama, for bright color, and for bold choices. This is kind of a living out loud thing. If you enjoy it and it makes you happy, you want to go for it. Of course, while Venus is in Leo, she will link to other planets that might temporarily shift this vibe. But for the most part, the next 4 weeks really comes with this cosmic message to remember the fun, to focus on the good times, and to share them with the people who truly light up your heart. And the undertone of Venus in Leo is like, I'm raising my standards. I know that I'm worth it. And that's the new bar that we're going to set. So the final astro event that I want to share with you now, we're looking at the week starting July 13, and we're looking at Mars conjunct Uranus in Taurus around 26 degrees. Now, this Mars-Uranus aspect will come on Monday, July 15, unless you're in Australia, and it will peak on the 16th. Mars is a little bit of a slower moving planet relative to like Mercury or Venus, who we've been talking about so far. And so even though this Mars-Uranus aspect is peaking on the 15th, I would say it's going to be in effect July 14, 15, and 16 for most of us. It's not as quick. It'll have a little bit more of a lingering influence. So Mars conjunct Uranus, this is one of the more dramatic and troublesome aspects of the whole month of July. And before that sets you off into too much of a tailspin of panic, we have had 2 Mars-Uranus conjunctions in Taurus already. We had one in January of 2021, and we had a second Mars conjunct Uranus in Taurus aspect in August of 2022. This one, mid-July 2024, is the third and final in this series of Mars conjunct Uranus in Taurus aspects. As a little side note, Mars does unite and make that conjunction aspect with Uranus every 18 months to 2 years. So it's an aspect that happens with a fair amount of regularity. But every 3 or 4 meetings, Uranus will have changed signs. And so, for instance, prior to January of 2021, Uranus and Mars were still meeting on that same 18 months to 2 year timeline. But those pre-2021 aspects were happening with Mars and Uranus in Aries. Mars and Uranus will continue meeting. Their next meeting after this July will be mid-2026. By then, Uranus will be in Gemini. And so the Mars-Uranus sequence of aspects, or conjunctions at least, will start happening in Gemini. So it is one of those problematic aspects. We have had it a couple of times before, but it's something we need to know about because it's going to make a little bit of a rocky, bumpy energy for a couple of days around mid-month. One thing that makes this Mars conjunct Uranus aspect so tricky is that Mars is in the detriment condition. So that's a technical condition factor for Mars, specifically when it's in Taurus. And that adds a bit of a prickly, frustrated quality to Mars. Mars is not perhaps operating at its best. It's already thinking outside the box. It's already figuring out how to make do with things that aren't a good fit. And then we add in the kind of roller coaster energy of Uranus, which can sometimes be a little volatile. It's certainly unpredictable. And so we add that to Mars that's already a bit frustrated. And straight away, you can see how this combination is full of fireworks and definitely one of those aspects where we're going to have some friction. That idea of sparks might fly. So when Mars conjuncts Uranus, July 15, you might have to deal with tension or discord. It might be a day where things are fractious and just not going smoothly or not going to plan. You might have to manage an unexpected change or something that surprises or even shocks you kind of out of left field. So something that's just like, whoa, I did not see that coming. You might be super restless. That's a very common symptom of Uranus aspects or Uranus transits. And you might be really starting to feel that rub of restriction. So sometimes when the energy around freedom and independence gets so big and strong with a Mars Uranus aspect like this, we start to feel where we're lacking freedom or independence. And that's where we feel restricted. So, with Mars conjunct Uranus, needing change, craving freedom, wanting to do your own thing rather than attend to your duties, your routines, or your obligations, these are really common expressions of this kind of aspect. So, that restlessness and that frustration for not having the flexibility or the spontaneity that you want, not having the freedom or the space to be authentic, and having to be bound by duty or responsibility, we can feel a bit rebellious about that. So, Mars conjunct Uranus can certainly bring some upheaval, and it definitely indicates things are changing. Things are changing at the last minute, on the fly, and we're having to adapt quickly because, we're in a situation where there's just a lot going on in a short space of time. So, knowing that, I would really invite you to have a think about what kinds of radical changes you might want to make. Even if you have no idea how that would work or even how to make that happen, like this is what I have wished for, but I don't even know where to start. Just opening your mind and your energy to those kind of wild possibilities, those radical shifts, that can have a really exciting and liberating effect. So, we are contemplating innovation. We're exploring how to experiment and do things differently. For some of us, it's about day-to-day routines like weekly, monthly stuff. For others, it's actually going to be like the match that likes the flame that kind of really asks us to make a much bigger, bolder change. So we're kind of trying to tune into this freedom, liberating energy, but we kind of get there by the frustration, the annoyance. Where do I not have the autonomy or the authenticity that I want? There's a lot about celebrating your individuality. There's a lot about kind of fighting for the right to make unique choices in Mars conjunct Uranus. Like, I don't want to do what everyone else has done. I want to follow my own path. That is a lot about Mars. That's a lot of what Mars Uranus is about. So, this aspect from Mars to Uranus in Taurus feels like rebellion. It feels like pushing back against expectation or pressure. Sometimes it can be a little bit like having, an inner toddler tantrum where symbolically there's a part of you inside that is stamping your feet. And even though as an adult, you probably know how to regulate your anger, how to manage it, how to work with it, it can still be really important to notice what angers or unsettles you. So if you find yourself really frustrated, if you find yourself short-tempered, if you find yourself being impulsive, as Mars conjuncts Uranus, July 15, mid-month, I would really pay attention to what is irritating you, what is getting under your skin, what is bothering you, because these are clues as to where in life you do need a change, where you're not able to be as fully authentic and free as you might like. And that's the area where we can work on for growth and our own personal evolution. So, this first 2 weeks of July, the weeks looking at July 6th and then July 13, it really has a mix of astrology. We've got that very auspicious, lucky Mercury sextile Jupiter aspect around July 8th. Then we have that joyful shift of Venus into Leo around July 11th. And then we've got this unpredictable, anything is possible aspect from Mars to Uranus, and that is July 15. So I'm really curious to know how you're experiencing these different astrological events. Let me know in the comments below. I'm really curious, what good stuff do you get to organize or participate in with Mercury, Jupiter? And what things are you thinking about changing or kind of throwing up in the air and doing totally differently as Mars meets Uranus around the 15th? As I do mark 1 year of the podcast, I really just want to thank you so much for joining me. If you are interested in learning astrology, all of my classes and courses in astrology are available online over at my website, kellysastrology.com. I wish you all a fantastic week. I will be back to share more next week. Until then, everyone, have fun.